Raise your hand if you have not thoroughly checked the table saw to make sure the blade is perfectly parallel to the miter gauge slot in the fence. Now be honest, you can't shortcut this. You've got to make sure that they're right. If you don't take the time to do this, you can run into all sorts of problems. Kind of the least bad problem is that you're not going to get the cut quality out of the blade and the table saw that you should be able to expect. In the category of more bad problems, you can have safety issues, because it's possible, if the blade is not parallel to the slot in the fence, that you get binding issues that can cause kickback, and that's very, very bad. So what we want to do is make sure they're right, and what I want to do is show you a way that's very, very low tech and easy, and I hope that means then that you're going to do it. So first thing, saw is unplugged. Next thing, I'm going to remove the guard. And I'm going to raise the blade as high as it'll go. Now what's cool about this is that our tools are really, really low tech. All we're going to do is use a framing square and a metal ruler in conjunction with the table saw's miter gauge in order to do this check. The way it works is that the long leg of the framing square is going to go up against the side of the saw blade. Now when I do this, one of the things I'm watching for at the leading edge and at the trailing edge is that I'm not on a carbide tooth, I'm on the plate of the saw blade. Because what will happen is, let's say I'm on carbide on the back and I'm not on the front, then there's a gap there alongside the blade, and because I'm offset by the thickness of the tooth. So dial that back down, and right there, now I'm on the plate. Now, very simple check. What I'm going to do is make contact with the metal ruler against the framing square here, hold it in place on the miter gauge, and move it all the way to the back. And we can hear it. It's dragging along the edge of the framing square. If it loses contact, that tells me that the blade is going this way and my ruler is going this way. Now, to be double sure, what we want to do is also then check it from the back. So I slide it over, kiss it to the edge of the framing square, hold it with my fingers against the miter gauge, drag it back, and again, we can hear it making contact all the way down the framing square. If this is way out, if they're angled in like this, what's going to happen as we move in that direction is that this is going to start to bind up. My metal ruler is going to start to bind up against the framing square because of the angle. So it's one of three things going to happen. It's going to go perfectly like it did on this saw, or as you move from one end to the other, it's going to start to have a gap between the metal ruler and the framing square, or it's going to start to bind up between the metal rule and the framing square. Those two actions, the binding or the gap, are going to tell you what direction you need to move the blade in. At that point, check the owner's manual for your saw, make the correction, test it again, take the time to make sure that you get it just right. Again, low-tech, simple way, framing square and a metal ruler is a great way to make sure your table saw is doing everything for you that it should be doing.